Hello and welcome to the Jackcast, your Swansea City podcast. I'm Matt Barocco and I'm joined as ever by Steve Carroll. Afternoon, Steve.
Afternoon.
It might be a bit of an upbeat one again this week. We've got another victory to talk about, and it's actually on the road where the heart is for Swansea at the moment, because another successive away victory for the Swans, this time away at the Stadium of Light, Steve. 2-1 win, and based on the first half alone, very much good value for the points.
Yeah, I think so. It was a step forward for sure, wasn't it? I mean, we've, on last week's one, we got into a lot of detail really about the issues that we've got and our general frustrations, really, didn't we? But, there have been other instances where we've seen improvements, and we have to say that the first half at Sunderland was one of the best of the season, really, wasn't it? We've scored 2 really good goals. And we've missed some other good chances as well, haven't we? And we've dominated. So that was a real step in the right direction. And what is, I know Sunderland haven't been amazing this season or anything, but it's still a tough game. It's certainly, you'd think they'll finish above us in the table. So, yeah, to go there and perform the way that we did was great, wasn't it? It was really positive signs, I thought.
Yeah, it's a bit of a turmoil down up at Sunderland at the moment, isn't it? They just sacked Michael Beale. It seems to be, as we talked last week, every team sacks their manager 3 or 4 days before playing us. No change there. We worried about a backlash.
And managers called Michael Arasi.
Yeah, it's it appears to be. And well, I don't know, because their interim manager is called Mike as well, so we don't know. Mike Dodds.
Good luck.
I think, yeah, exactly. This Sunderland interim manager's first game in charge, and you always worry he's going to get the dressing room back on side, get a bit of harmony back going, and maybe Swans face the wrath of that. But it wasn't to be. Sunderland look every bit a team without a manager, without a style, without a direction in that first half. And it has to be said, and I'll take absolutely nothing away from the Swans, who started that game superbly in the first 45 minutes, could have legitimately gone in 5-0 at half-time, and I don't think there could have been too many grumbles because we came close on so many occasions. But as good as we were, Sunderland were poor, and they're so poor.
Yeah, they were. I mean, it did just look like a team in a bit of disarray. I think that is the way of describing it. I mean, but it's not a shock when obviously they had a manager at the start of the season. They weren't really doing badly, and I think what happened with Tony Mowbray getting sacked was quite surprising, wasn't it? And
yeah,
Michael Beale has come in, who, on the face of it, not a bad appointment, but it just seemed like a bad fit, didn't it? And like I say, his general demeanour and stuff like that, they didn't take to him at all from day one, really. And obviously it's not worked out. They've made another change, and obviously they've decided now to, really wait until the summer to bring in a permanent replacement. And I think when that happens, it does tend to be quite uninspiring, doesn't it? I mean, because Sunderland are not far off the playoffs, but you're always thinking, well, we put a caretaker in, but it suggests that you don't really believe in this guy and you don't think you can get the right person in. So it almost feels like they've written off the rest of the season in some ways. So that would be quite disappointing, especially when you consider that, there was over 41,000 there the other day. I mean, it's staggering numbers, aren't they? I mean, for, this division and for a team that, as we say, are not doing brilliantly, and the feeling at the club probably isn't great. So it shows you really the size of club some that others can only dream of. Certainly one up the road that seem to think they're a giant. But it's Sunderland, a funny one in that sense. You think that they weren't having a bad season, and they've sort of undone it with a change of manager, which hasn't really paid off. And they just looked in complete disarray. And for once, maybe the fixture list did us a bit of a favour, didn't it? We've been moaning the last few weeks about playing all the top sides, not much respite, but maybe it was a good time for us to play Sunderland, and we've taken advantage of it.
There was a couple like that, which we'll talk about in a bit. But the game itself, Steve, I mean, needless to say, the name on every Swans fan's lips is Ronald, who impresses us more and more. Every time we see him in the Swans shirt, it's not just his direct play, it's not just his pace, it's his tenacity, it's his, it's fight in him as well. So I think all of us, every Swansea fan around the globe, is delighted that he finally opened his account. and two very well taken goals.
Yeah, I mean, if he carries on the way he's going, he's going to be a contender for Player of the Year, isn't he? Which is probably quite damning on everybody else, but also probably shows that he has.
Had that one wrapped up in October, to be honest with you, but he's certainly going to end up in the top five.
I didn't say winner, I said contender, didn't I? So, because do you remember years ago when Andrew Mumford won it, and he didn't break into the team, I think, until the new year. I think McBurney once won for Barnsley, didn't he? Even though he was only there half a season. So you do see it. It's incredibly damning, mind. But I think even if he's nominated, it's quite damning. But look, he is giving us something, isn't he? I think obviously stuff like the final ball isn't always what we're looking for. It can be a bit hit and miss at times, but he's making a difference. He's making those runs. He's showing. He's got that pace. He's taking people on, and we've seen that end product now from him. The weekend obviously was, Cullen's header that was parried by the keeper and has led to him. But then that second goal was a great finish, wasn't it? Joe Allen's done brilliantly to read the pass, interception. He's put a good ball through to him, but there's plenty to do from there. He's had to take, a good first touch and drill it into the corner. He's dispatched it with aplomb, hasn't he? It's a great finish, and once you've got that first goal, sometimes you've just got that little bit of confidence, haven't you? And that wouldn't have done him any harm at all when the second opportunity came. And brilliant. Obviously, he's the first Brazilian to play for us, now the first Brazilian to score for us. And look, it's all positive, isn't it? It's great, and we were well worth that 2-goal lead at that point, weren't we?
Oh yeah, and some. I mean, I think that first goal was a fantastic team move out from the back. Worked it out left to Josh Tymon, who's put that ball in. Cullen will feel like he should have done better with it, and he's headed it and it's gone straight down the keeper's throat. But Ronald's there, and I noticed there were 3 players around the 6-yard box when that ball came in the box, which is partially why I think Cullen might have been partially sighted initially, but he's still going to feel like he should have stuck that away from his position. But when Ronald followed that up, it's the culmination of a great team move. And the second one, Steve, as you mentioned, fantastic bit of interception work by Allen, and then had the vision to spot Ronald. And the control from the Brazilian winger was superb. So many times you see that in those positions, overhit it, underhit it, whatever. But he's parried the ball out from his feet and got himself a nice half a yard there to drill it past the keeper. And like you say, confidence would have been brimming at that point. And there could have been more. Ronald put a great ball across then for Plaqueta. He missed from point blank range. I don't know how he managed to be honest, and he'll probably be thinking that himself. But I think I like that as well, is you cannot overcommit. If you've got a one threat in a football team, you can't, we can just cut that area out. We'll just cut out Ronald's source, because he was absolutely destroying Sunderland down his right, their left, all first half. It was really embarrassing. Every time he went past someone, he was just going past them like they weren't there. But then you look on the other side. I mean, you've got Plaqueta, who's got pace to burn, and Josh Tymon, who's quickly becoming one of the most accomplished attacking left backs in the league. So you're looking at him bringing the ball on and getting balls in the box. You can't commit to just overloading one side of the pitch. And that's where the constant imbalance was, trying to shift from one side to the other to keep us quiet. And in that first half, Grimes could have scored as well. As I say, you mentioned Plaqueta. Ronald got 2, probably could have got a first half hat-trick with one that just drifted inches wide of the far post. From Luke Williams' perspective, Steve, it's all you could ask for and more.
Yeah, I think what we're really seeing now is the team seem to have a far better idea of what they're trying to do. I think there were signs of it even in some of the games that we have lost. It's just the fact that we're playing against good opposition, and you've got to be at your best. And like the High Line being a good example where you're doing that against the better sides, and particularly the quick ones, you're going to be in a bit of trouble, aren't you? But it does feel as if the manager is putting the stamp on the team, which I felt the previous manager never really did. So that has to be a good thing, really. We know that Williams likes his teams to score goals, doesn't he? To score goals, you've got to create loads of chances. And, we're starting to do that. I mean, we're not by no means one of the best teams in this division, but we can, there's positive signs, aren't there? I think that's what the main thing is now. And as you said, to have now 2 wingers with pace, I mean, how long have we been saying we just wanted one, and now we've got two? We have a genuine threat, and that is brilliant from our point of view. We can actually stretch teams now. It gives us a better chance of creating opportunities, which we're doing. And it's, to be honest, good to watch as well. That's the other positive with it. I mean, you couldn't just say that we weren't just, effective the other day. It was attractive football as well. So, you could see that we're keeping the ball better. We're putting better moves together, all this type of thing. So definite improvement, and vindicates really the decision to give Luke Williams the job. And even you've got to look at Notts County have struggled since he left as well. So it shows, that we've most certainly got, I would say, the right manager in charge. And, he is going to continue to build with us, but it's going to be, there will undoubtedly be bumps in the road first as well. But yeah, I can see things now that I like, and we've got things to build on, and we're putting some, we have put some points on the board. I know that, at home it's been disappointing and we'll be looking to improve, but, going to Hull away and winning, and same at Sunderland, they're good wins. You can't look at it any other way.
Yeah, and it doesn't certainly seems to be pressure off. Looking at it from a tactical point of view, Steve, as well, we've talked for a couple of years now under Russell Martin, or at least the last year, at least first year we had a bit of pace in that team. Last year we didn't, and we talked about the lack of ability to get at teams, counter-attack, playing on in their faces, and our build-up play being slow and intricate. But so many times when I watch Ronald play, I see him, maybe he'd begin the move as well. He'll lay the ball off, but then he will sprint straight down the wing. And so many times he's looking for that ball over the top because no one's beating him in a foot race. So he's constantly looking to give us that other option. We've built and been intricate so often in the way we play, but it almost goes back to watching, I guess the best way to describe it, to someone who would run onto the ball would be a Nathan Dyer type, someone who is happy not to have the ball at his feet initially, but be able to sprint onto a through ball. Ronald reminded me a little bit like that, where he didn't have to have it initially, and gives us that option, doesn't it? Because we can build intricate, we can do pretty football, we can do the perfect team goal and stuff like that. We've seen how that has developed and become part of our identity. But having the option as well to say, well, actually, we'll hit them quick here. We've won the ball back, quick turnover of possession, and our pacey winger is sprinting down the wing. It gives us that other outlet.
Yeah, it does. I mean, you look at the best sides that we've had, and when we really talk about, the Swansea way, really. I mean, it was with Dyer certainly on the right hand side, and then you'd have had the likes of Sinclair or Routledge on the other, really. So, I think that says it all for what we're looking for, and I think Russell Martin was, there was elements of it, but that was the one thing we were always lacking. We never used to play three at the back, as we've said before, but now we are back to more this 4-2-3-1, which I feel is, the best way to play the game from an attacking point of view. And now with those pacey wide men, it is along the lines of like a Brendan Rodgers. So this is certainly the way to go, and I think it is going to lend itself to creating more chances, attractive football, all these type of things that we're looking for. So it is good, I think. And as I said, it shows that Williams, from my point of view, seems to be the right man for the job. So there's a lot to be encouraged about from that point of view. So let's just hope now that we've got a lot of tough games out of the way as well, that we will continue to build on this. I mean, might not mean results all the time, but let's hope it means performances more often than not. And in general, if you do play well, it does lead to results. So there's things to work with, there's things to build on. That's what we're looking for, because I know a lot of people have been concerned about the situation. I mean, obviously, results have not been great, but we've had tough games, and that's been tricky for us. You can't. It's a good job we did win the other day in another way, though, isn't it? Because for 6 of the bottom 8 to win is absolutely staggering. So yeah, if we hadn't won, also certainly if we'd drawn, we'd only be 2 above the bottom 3. If we'd lost, we'd have only been 1, which would have felt crazy, really. It's just one of those days, wasn't it, really, on Saturday with results. But a big win, because it does keep our heads above water. Or even though must admit, I'm not overly concerned about the drop, because I think we will pull ourselves out of it.
Yeah, listen, 4 at the back. I think we've been banging the drum for so long. Russell Martin
Sick of saying it, aren't we?
Came through to it right at the end of his reign when we had the best run of form in his whole time here, and just so happened he did it a couple of games too late for us to just miss out on playoffs. But to see it now being, and we always said, didn't we, as much as we think and we believe that this is absolutely the way to go, get rid of the fullbacks, the wing back situation, and go to forward to back. You do need to validate that opinion with results and performances. So things like Saturday will do it no harm at all, because it does allow you not to be caught out down the wings, because you haven't got Norton playing up in the opposition half and leaving a massive gap behind him, or time on the other side. There was cover. There was obviously the two midfielders give us an opportunity as well to talk about one of the midfielders. You've been saying for some time, Steve, I've questioned the level of fitness, but you've been banging the drum. Get Joe Allen starting in that team, and boy, what a difference he made.
Yeah, I mean, look, the issue with Joe has been fitness, isn't it? The move hasn't really worked out at this stage, which has been really disappointing, because I know loads of people have said, he was injury prone and stuff like that, but I don't think that's the case before he joined us. I mean, yes, there was the Achilles injury, but then the year after for Stoke, he played 40 games. That's not an injury prone player. It just so happens that it's not really worked since he's come in here, which is really disappointing, because he did show on Saturday, and I felt against Ipswich as well, that he can still offer something. So, whether I would give him a new deal or not, I think does hinge on how fit he stays. But yes, from my point of view, he's been fit now for 2 months, and it's been annoying for me that he hasn't been put in the team, because we've not been doing great. And you just know that he's one of those players. He'll always do everything. He's a consistent performer. He keeps the ball for fun. He always shows for it. He never hides. And I think we've said, on a couple of previous ones, that it's quite an unlikable Swans team. But yeah, I don't think Joe Allen is unlikable at all. So if you get him in there, it immediately gets us all a bit more on side. And I think in that Ipswich game, remember he put that crunching tackle in. You just think, well,
yeah,
he's only small, isn't he? But he'll put the boot in. So I think Joe should have been playing a few weeks ago. I can understand why we needed to be a bit careful with him, but he should have been starting. And now he has started. I thought Ipswich was a little bit better than Leeds, certainly. And we've played well the other day, and he was in the team. So it does really vindicate that he should be starting. So,
one of our biggest problems was being out of sight in a game by the time the 25th, 30th minute has come about. And, you're 2-0 down now. So, yes, you've got some players that can come on off the bench, but you're chasing a game. It's so difficult when you're playing at this level to buy yourself back into a game where teams can see it out, can time waste, can keep ball, can make so many substitutions now to disrupt the rhythm of the game. And we've seen in these games, like the likes of Leicester to a large extent, Southampton in particular, I think the second half in Southampton, where you're building up momentum, you just give yourself a little bit too much to do in those games to get yourself back into it. You're better off just starting the players. Even if Joe Allen can only give you half hour, 40 minutes, start him for the half hour, 40 minutes, and then give ourselves a platform to build from, rather than constantly playing catch up in these games.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it? As well, as you say, we've been out of sight, and we certainly think if we could have got 45 out of him, we could have gone down that route. But I mean, we've seen him have an hour in the last two now, and the question should be, can we build him up towards 70, 75 minutes? And from my point of view, there's no reason why not. I mean, might have to be careful because we've got a midweek game, next week. So there's 3 games in a week. Maybe it would be the sensible thing to take him out of the team in the midweek game and, focus on him having 1 game a week for now. And obviously there can be little doubt that we want him to play against Cardiff, for example, which is fast approaching. So, yeah, look, we do have to be careful with him to a point. But look, he's one of those players you trust, isn't he? Whereas I think there might be a few in the team, certainly this season, that you look at and think you can't put your house on them. You just can't rely on some of them. But I think if Joe's fit, you can rely on him. So that's why you've got to get him in the team, I think, from my point of view. And he's in it now. He's showing his worth. Let's just hope he stays fit, because if he's fit, he'll still more than good enough for us.
We did see that old nagging thing come back to haunt us again a little bit, where we just don't seem to have that psychology, that absolute monster psychology there, where you can go on and come out the set and keep pushing and keep battering and we just seem to have that spell where we allow the opposition to dictate back to us. I know it's so difficult to control the game for as long as we want to, and we have got a lack of quality in some areas now that we're paying the price of for the past few years. But Sunderland did improve after the break, and we struggled to a little extent to handle that. And when Luke O'Nien headed them back into the game, with around 20 minutes to go, you did think then, well, maybe, we're a bit concerned now. We're going to face the Alan Hoyer, we're going to have to face and back to the wall. To be fair, and we don't go a podcast without mentioning this man's name, but 94th, 95th minute, Sunderland corner, their goalkeeper of all people meets a header from the corner, and that man, Carl Rushworth, closed it off the goal line and away to safety. And you just can't speak enough of how many points that man's earned us this season. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it's a great save, isn't it? I think Sunderland put us under pressure without creating that many good chances, didn't they, after that, getting that goal back? I think that's probably a fair assessment. But that was the one chance that was a good one. And look, he's bailed us out of trouble again, hasn't he? That's... we're very lucky to have him. He has saved us points, as you said. And I think those comments from Luke Williams after, where he said that there's, a pretty good chance he's going to be here next year, is great. I think it's good for everybody, to be honest, the goalkeeper included, because I do think he's got a good future in the game. But at the same time, he needs to play. And you look at Brighton, they've got, they signed a goalkeeper for 20 million in last summer. And I think there's been a lot of rotation there between the top two goalkeepers on the South Coast. And you're just thinking that it's not going to be much of a chance for Rushworth at this stage to play there. So, yeah, you could send him to a goalkeeper, to a club in our division that's a different one. But if he's enjoying it here and he's happy and he's playing, then there's no real reason to upset the apple cart that's there. So I think it does make sense for him to remain here again next year. And that takes an issue away, really, doesn't it? Because we do know it could be a rebuild again in the summer in certain positions, and
unless things to focus on, isn't it? If we can secure him for another year.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, let's be honest about it. If he was to go, goalkeeper becomes the number one priority position, doesn't it? For obvious reasons. So, that even more so than a striker, I would say, which is a problem at the moment. But if we can just take that issue away, it's one less headache, because we are going to have to recruit reasonably, I think. It's certainly in a few positions anyway where we could be short. So to have that taken away straight away, where you've got him for another year, you can go, right, no problem, we're fine with the goalkeeper now. We've got a good one that we can rely on, and we can focus on other areas of the team. So that's what's important, really.
It is interesting. It's a conversation we'll have in greater depth at the end of the season. But when you talk about goalkeeper position, yes, hugely important. Striker position, we actually have a wealth of strikers, none of which have really set the world alight, and that's the problem why we need to go into there. We are looking at the likes of Liam Roche being out of contract, Pato being out of contract, and our centre midfield position, Joe Allen being out of contract. That centre of the park is already a weak area for us. It's an area we haven't been able to dominate as we normally would. So it's an area we'd already have to improve on. But we already have 4 or 5 as well who are coming to the end of their contracts. Whether new ones will be offered out to it remains to be seen. But a lot of work to be done, Steve. And so, as we just mentioned, the goalkeeping position not being one of them, it will be a huge help.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say there, I'm sure as the season goes on, we'll discuss some of the players that are out of contract. There's quite a few, and obviously there are some loan players like Rushworth as well, where would we want them to stay or anything like that? Will there even be a possibility for some of them? So, Williams is going to get a chance to put a bit of a stamp on the team, I think, in the summer. But we certainly don't want Paul Watson making the decisions, though, based on what's happened previously. So, yeah, there will be a lot to discuss. But look, if Rushworth stays, then that's undoubtedly a good thing, because I'm going to have to say it, but we don't want Fisher in the team, do we?
Not a podcast goes by, Steve. As you mentioned, 6 out of the bottom 8 winning, huge shock to the division board. It not just helping all the teams at the bottom, but it's actually dragged a lot of other teams into the mix, and depending on where you sit on what sort of points look safe, what sort of points look shaky, well, there's only 9 points separating the relegation zone from 11th placed Watford, would you believe? That many teams are within 3 results of the bottom 3. It's absolutely crazy at this stage of the season. And the bottom of the table in particular, anything from Blackburn down 16th, Blackburn only 4 points off, as we are. So, you're picking... Well, you say Rotherham are gone, but you're picking 2 from about 10, Steve. It is crazy tight down there.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, it just shows that if somebody does go on a bad run, then, it's going to be quite damaging, isn't it? But when there's so many other teams involved, the way that each team has to approach it is, you've got the opportunity to dig yourself out. And just think of how many games they're going to be between those teams. Those 10, like we might have to play every single one of them. I haven't looked at it, but we certainly got to play nearly all of them, haven't we? So,
yeah,
in that sense, you've only got
yourselves to play. We did say before, and this is going to be good, but ultimately what you want is the first half of the season, or the first and middle half of the season is what did the struggling teams, and towards the end then you want the dead rubber mid-table teams, really, don't you? Because they're going to be, hopefully we're not considered a 6-pointer, but potentially there's going to be a few 6-pointers there, isn't there?
Yeah, you would think so, wouldn't you? Well, like I say, we got Millwall on the last day, so if it was to go to the wire, then potentially you've got that situation, haven't you? So, yeah. But I think when there's so many involved, you can focus far more, I think, on what you're doing. You should always focus on yourselves anyway.
Yeah.
But when there's only about 2 or 3 you can catch, you'll find yourself looking at their results a lot more. Whereas I think now you don't really need to do that. You just need to think, well, if we get the points, there's others. There's going to be at least somebody who cocks up. So
yeah, sure.
That's the way of it. And I know the other day the big losers were Stoke, weren't they? They lost at Cardiff, and everybody else apart from Rotherham in the bottom 8 won, I think. So they're now in the bottom 3. It does feel like a good time to say that I would be delighted if they went down, because I am sick to death of playing them. So
been in their division every year, haven't we?
Since 2011. It's like 13 seasons in a row. So if they went, I mean, no one's going to miss a trip to the Bet365, are they? Let's be honest about that one. Yeah, it's grim, isn't it? So I would welcome a break from Stoke without a doubt. So yeah, I mean, obviously the priority will always be us anyway. But yeah, I won't be shedding a single tear if Stoke go down.
Listen, you mentioned Stoke being big losers on the weekend. One team in the week that probably had the worst case scenario, and I'm conscious of tempting fate here, so I'm going to choose my words carefully. But Blackburn was still playing 3 hours after they started against Newcastle last night, and they didn't get the result they wanted in the end. Knocked out on penalties, run themselves into the ground. Fully deserved to go through, in my opinion. Really give themselves a good account of themselves. But seeing that go the full distance, Steve, you've got to hope that could be an advantage us when it comes to Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, it's not ideal for Blackburn, I would say. I agree with you. They played well, I thought, against Newcastle. They were unlucky not to get a result. The top flight side were jammy. I think that's fair to say. I was impressed by how Blackburn played, to be honest. They created quite a few chances as well. So I actually didn't think Blackburn were capable of that. So they should take a lot of heart from it. But obviously, when you've done that, and of course their top goal scorer got injured right at the end of extra time, so they've had a real rotten bit of luck there. To be fair, I do sympathise. Obviously, from our point of view,
he missed the penalty as well, didn't he?
Yeah, it could. You'd like to think it could play into our hands. I mean, you don't know for certain, do you? I mean, but I don't think after a bad fixture this, we can now complain at a team that have had a grueling midweek. The top scorer is probably not going to play. It's gone in our favour there, isn't it? But you have to take advantage of that. So that has to be our aim. But we did win at Blackburn earlier in the season. It was a good win. So if we can get a double over them, that'd be great. I mean, they were quite full of it against us on social media, weren't they, last year as well, Blackburn? So
we brought that on ourselves a bit, didn't we? But yeah,
I think we did. But the first time I sort of got it, but then when we won there again, I don't think there was a need to gloat again. I felt that was a little bit over the top. So, yeah, look, I think Blackburn are a decent team. I don't think they're going to go down. They'll be disappointed with how they've done this year. I mean, the obvious thing to say would obviously be they lost Brereton Diaz. That couldn't have helped, could it? But they have
the Sam Smollett's up front.
Yes.
What's he scored? 23, 24 goals? It's unbelievable.
That is the other thing as well. So those goals have been replaced when you look at it like that. But, I mean, they did play well last night. That's how they have to look at it. I mean, if they play like that most weeks, there's no way they're going to go down. But, Blackburn.
Is it after the Lord Mayor's show, potentially? I mean, they did leave it all out on the pitch. Anyone who watched will see.
Yeah,
as you say, Smollett's pulled up with a feel in his hamstring in the 120th minute. Obviously, he wasn't replaced. He took a penalty, got saved. But there'll be a lot. Well, I very much doubt they even turned up into the training ground today. They almost certainly would have had today off to try and recover, and maybe even tomorrow will be light training. So there's got to be stages to build in their strongest 11 back to some sort of competitive level in ready for Saturday, because that was a mammoth effort from them. And like I say, if you're going to leave it all on the pitch for the length of time they did, you hope you get paid off with the result, and not to have that as well is a bitter blow for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they can look at it in terms of they did themselves proud, didn't they? They'll be angry, but for almost like a good reason. Whereas after Bournemouth, I was furious and just embarrassed by how crap we were and feeling as if we'd left an opportunity go to waste, really. But whereas Blackburn won't feel like that. But yeah, look at what they've obviously would have put into the game will have had an effect, and I can't imagine they'd relish travelling all the way down here either, to be honest. I mean, it's Blackburn is a fair trek, isn't it, to say the least. So it does give us an opportunity, you'd like to think, but you've got to take it at the end of the day. I mean, if Blackburn are able to replicate what they did on Tuesday, it's going to be a really difficult game. So you just never know, do you? It would be typical Swans to not follow up what happened on last week with, doing what we're hoping for now this weekend. But you just don't know, do you? So, but look, I think I'd be
shocked if they didn't make 3 or 4 changes on Saturday and have to leave a few of their starting 11 on the bench.
But they didn't make a few changes during the game, though, didn't they?
Yeah. I just look at that, the way that team was throwing themselves at everything. And yes, okay, they brought on that debutant from Liverpool, didn't they, for the last 20 minutes, half hour or so, and you give them extra legs as well. So they'll have options, but it'll be an interesting one how Luke Williams deals with this, because it might not be worth. Well, obviously take it with a pinch of salt, looking at their last 7-8 results, looking at the teams and formations they use. John Eustace gone in there, of course, and he'll have decisions to make when it comes to the weekend of how he can freshen his team up.
Yeah, exactly. But I think really we just need to focus on what we're doing, don't we? I mean, we've played well at the weekend. We've had a good win. As far as I'm concerned, there's no real need to make a change. We haven't had a midweek game either ourselves, so I would just approach it the same way as we did on last Saturday. Really stick with the same team, similar approach. Just get on the front foot and let's cause them some problems. We've not had a great home record. Obviously, the manager hasn't had a home win yet in the league, so needs to be thinking that this is an ideal opportunity to get 3 points on the board and to continue to hopefully build on that performance last week and get a bit of a run going, a bit of momentum, really.
Yeah, let's talk about that home form. Just one of those things. So this season seems to be really rotten, and you have to start thinking, right, okay, it might be a little bit more than just coincidence or anything like that. And what in your opinion then is contributing to our poor home form this season?
The fact that we've not been very good in general. I think we have to be honest about that one first of all.
Is there a reason why we can't, replicate those efforts?
Trying to think. Obviously, recently you'd have to say the fixtures have come into it a bit. Performances haven't been great at home, though. I think the other weird thing, we look at it, is we beat Sheffield Wednesday and Norwich. And they were back to back at home, really. Yeah. And then the same thing happened with Preston and West Brom, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think they were two home games running that we've won, and then But in between, we've had a lot of runs where, obviously we haven't won. I suppose at the start we've had a few draws and stuff, haven't we? The first 2 home games were drawn before the Bristol City game, which was, that was really bad, wasn't it? And obviously, look, we've lost at home to all of the top sides, so I'll give us our due on that. We have got a lot of the lesser sides, I would say, to come at home. Blackburn, obviously, now this weekend. QPR, Millwall, Rotherham. I mean, if you get a few wins in them, that'll boost it. It won't look as bad. So obviously that's part of it. But I mean, I think some of it's been like poor starts. Like you look at the Huddersfield game as one, conceded early. They just sat deep, haven't they? And we're not playing well at that point. So that's that one. I mean, I think we were 2 up on Hull, weren't we? And we played quite well the first half, certainly after we were winning anyway. But then they made changes and they did well in the second half, and we didn't really. I mean, I think the worst thing would be, how many games at home have we been particularly unlucky in? And only one really springs to mind, and that's Plymouth. I don't think we've been unlucky in many of the others, if I'm honest with you. I mean,
what's interesting, I think by a few points, certainly true. A few weeks ago, I saw the stat on TV. Lost the most points from winning positions in the league.
Yeah,
that's odd, a lot. It goes down to, when we talk about the Southampton game. I come back to that. You get yourselves back in the game, and you concede straight after. Was it Ipswich? Was that something similar as well?
Ipswich was that when it. I suppose
just the mentality. We talk about mentality quite often on this podcast, about how we're not really, switching on and having that winning kind of dig in what we have, we hold, or that fierce winning mentality, and it is something that perhaps we lack psychological battles with.
Yeah, I suppose you are always going to drop a few from winning positions, but I mean it has happened too much. I mean, you think of, there's been a few games where we've scored early just out with nothing. Like Leeds away was one, and Ipswich was very early. I mean, you wouldn't necessarily expect to hang on there, but
it's so soon.
We weren't leading for long, were we?
Leeds is another example of instantly conceding.
Yeah, it is. Very quickly. Trying to think some of the others. Remember we had Preston, didn't we, early in the season, and we were winning for a while there, and then they've scored 2 quite quickly in the second half. I mean, the daylight robbery was home, wasn't it? Where we were obviously we've scored early on against the run of play. They've battered us. We're winning for a while, but in the end, justice was done, and we did deservedly lose that one. Trying to think of any. I suppose we were winning against Leicester for a bit, weren't we? But that was against the run of play.
Yeah.
So I suppose in some of them we've been leading against the top sides, I suppose, and yeah, I mean you never necessarily expect to hang on. Certainly, look at how good some of them have been, but yeah, there's clearly an issue, isn't there? With we have struggled to hold on in a few of them, and like you say, we've dropped points from winning positions. I mean, it is an issue. I think we all have to admit that one. It's not been a strength of ours, but hopefully we can build on that. To be fair, the 2 wins we've had under Williams, we have scored first and we've ended up winning. So I'll give us our due on that one. So maybe that is a sign of an improvement. But yeah, the home form has been disappointing, isn't it? I think, to only have 4 home wins by what will be the start of March is, that is really disappointing. I think, there'll be a lot of people that have not seen many wins this year. And that's tough to take. I mean, when you're looking at season ticket prices then for next year and stuff, it has been the most unenjoyable season for 2 decades. I can't describe it in another way. There has not been many particular high points to look back on this year, which is disappointing because, at the end of the day, it's a hobby, isn't it? I mean, we all love the Swans, want us to do well. We do admit that sometimes we're not going to be necessarily the best team in the league or anything like that, but you certainly want to come away from games having enjoyed it and, having things to look back on. And it doesn't really feel like we've had much of that this season. So, but there are 2 months to go, so there are positives, hopefully still to come. And I think if we were to win a certain game in a couple of weeks, that would certainly make everything feel a little bit better, wouldn't it? So, but we've got a few games to go before Cardiff come to town, haven't we?
Yeah, we got 2 on the road, which recently might actually be benefit to us. First up is Wednesday evening. We go to Vicarage Road, play Watford. Well, 2 wins in the bounce to give us a lot of confidence in what we're doing on the road, Steve. And whether we didn't really get tied down to the question on pressure as the home team to seize the initiative. Maybe there's something in that why our form hasn't been that great, or maybe the atmosphere hasn't been good, the morale around the stadium. I know I haven't felt particularly joyous being down there myself, so the players can feel that as well. Maybe that's why on the road they're able to be a little bit more expressive. So if that is the case, hopefully our good away form, it continues, and that in turn then boosts the atmosphere and belief of the Swans fans when we do watch them down the Liberty then, and have an opportunity to really support them through. But that game again, another mid-table team, Stephen, in a run of a few here, where we've got an opportunity to perhaps climb that table a little bit. It's so tight down there. A couple of results, and the picture looks different.
Yeah, it does. I mean, having 3 games in a week does give that opportunity, doesn't it? And they're all. They all look like games where we can get something from them. I'm not saying that we will get something from all of them, but I mean, you'd be disappointed if we didn't get, some points on the board with this. So, we certainly need to be targeting Blackburn as a win, and then, can we, Watford and Bristol City, the next 2, can we maybe win one of them? I don't know, but you certainly like to think that we'd be coming away with at least one result from those 2 games, not necessarily a win or a couple of draws or something like that, but. Yeah, you'd be looking for, I would say, to at least get 4 points from these 3 games. Yeah. Hopefully, upward trajectory performance-wise, just to get us all feeling good, and then before we inevitably have the big one at home. So I think that's what we're looking for. Just, positive signs, improvements, certainly some results. But look, there is possible. If we play as we did on Saturday, there's no reason why we couldn't win all 3 in that sense. I don't think we will, because it is hard to go on runs like that. I mean, how we won 4 in a row earlier in the season and the year that we're having does seem quite staggering, really. But yeah, if we were to individually replicate what we're doing, we will win games and we will create chances. So let's hope for, what will be a good week. I mean, there's a lot of weeks like this in this division, and there where you play 3 games and the picture can change quite dramatically, and it may well do for 1 or 2 teams. So, the chances are there for us to hopefully pick up some results and start climbing the table and get some performances down, build confidence.
Well, build confidence, because after that, as you mentioned, it's a trip to Ashton Gate to play Bristol City in a double header of mammoth proportions for the Swans. How the morale around the club is, and how not just for the fans, but the mood in the dressing room for the players as well, because we'll be doing a podcast before it. But after a trip to Ashton Gate is Cardiff at home, of course. So, March could be the month that dictates how we talk about this season when it comes to the dust settling at the end of it.
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, you look at the 2 seasons under Russell Martin, they were, the old peaks and troughs, weren't they? But the one thing that we had more than anything was those 4 glorious derby days, weren't they? Where obviously the doob. And this year we've produced what would have to be said as our worst performance against Cardiff, certainly in my lifetime, I would say. And there could be a few people listening here. I don't know how far back it would go for as bad as that we played in the derby. So, from our point of view, we expect better in the next one, and we want a result, because we've had a lot of good results in that, but we don't want to be going, where we've had a season without beating them in the game. We certainly don't want them to win both of them. So, yeah, I think that would certainly cheer everybody up a bit, and probably wouldn't do any harm, would it, for the season ticket sales for next year? Obviously, we don't know what the numbers are at this stage, but I think it runs, doesn't it, to the end of March, and you just think, well, the game against them in mid-March, if that goes well, it could perk people up, and yeah, it could help with renewals as well. So, yeah, we're not far off it now. The build-up will soon start, and that game can put a bit of gloss onto what has been, an uninspiring season, should we say?
Yeah, and like you say, those 3 results, you think 3 games you potentially could pick up results in, and if we play the way we can and could potentially pick up results in all three, is about lifting the mood, lifting the league position, and getting us all excited of what a Luke Williams Swansea City looks like in the 24-25 season potentially. So lo and behold, with the absolute minimal chink of light of potential upturn in form, the Swans ownership have agreed to hold a fans forum. That's on the 11th of March, the day after Bristol away. Steve called me a cynic that I just said all that, but an opportunity for the fans to air their grievances, ask some vital questions of the running of the club and where we're looking at financially, etc., but also perhaps an opportunity to get a feel for Luke Williams and how he likes to play the game. We've seen a lot of his press conferences and stuff, but Russell Martin always spoke well of these sorts of things, and it's something where the fans can really connect with the management team.
Yeah, I think it is good that these events get held. So, I'm sure it'll be an interesting night as ever, and the club will be praying that, we certainly get at least one win in the next three games, because they won't want to be facing angry fans or disillusioned ones before we play Cardiff. So, look, we'll see. Obviously, a first chance for Williams there to meet the fans. I'm sure he'll be. I've seen those clips of him when he was at Notts County doing similar events, and he seemed pretty good. So, that'll be. I'm sure it'll be an interesting night as it always is, really. So,
there's an interesting panel member, Steve. I'm sure you wouldn't have missed out that. Paul Watson will be sitting on that panel now. He's become, at least on social media, the centre focus of Swansea fans' derision, if you like, over the past 4 or 5 months or so. The way that the season's gone with the money spent, which looks like it's been misspent in large parts. He might face some unexpected heat. From what rumours going around, he seems to be blissfully unaware of his name being dragged through the mud in Swansea City circles, but it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out.
Yeah, well, scrutiny. There has to be scrutiny on the decisions that have been made, and he's
Josh Marsh
is
going to get thrown under the bus, isn't he?
Pardon?
Josh Marsh will be thrown under the bus for this, won't he?
He could well be thrown under the bus, but it doesn't mean that he should be. So that's the issue, isn't it? So, look. Watson's there, and look, they might get a shock. We don't know, do we? Don't know what questions are ever going to get asked at these events, and that's what's good about them, really. I mean, the more structured dialogue ones, questions can be vetoed, can't they? Whereas at a forum, sometimes you got to face them.
But there's a lot of people who listen to this podcast and are very much in the vocal sense on social media as well. It runs on Monday, March the 11th from 7 until 9 p.m. The club have released that update. So it's a perfect opportunity for you to go down and have a one-to-one with Paul Watson that isn't outside of Dorothy's nightclub. You can just have it in a face-to-face in a civilized atmosphere and really let him know your thoughts and get some vital feedback on it, because I know it's been a big talking point of the Swans fans, Steve.
Yeah, exactly. And I always think with these things, if you can go, then please do, because, if you want your question asked, the only way to guarantee it gets asked is to go yourself. I mean, if you ask other people to ask it, it's not as simple as that. I mean, people have asked me to do it before, and quite often if I ask something that they might not be particularly popular, they ain't going to come to me again anyway. So, all I can really say is if people want questions asked, then you need to do your best to try and turn up, really. So, look, and it is good that these events are supported, because not every club has them. So, if you can come along, then I think that would be great.
Exactly. And hopefully it'll be well attended and some good information passed over as well. That's it for this podcast. We will, of course, be back after the Bristol City game to wrap up on the 3 games we've discussed this afternoon. So that'll be quite a lengthy podcast, because we'll be talking about those 3. We'll be talking about the fans forum, and we'll be talking, of course, previewing the Cardiff game, which is Saturday the 16th, the 12:30 kickoff. So we'll be getting one in the week leading up to that. So that'll be a bumper pod. So I look forward to doing that with you, Steve, and hopefully we'll be able to convince someone else to come on and join us for that one. We'll look forward to it. But for myself and Steve, thanks for listening, and we'll speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.